everyone, welcome back to my storytelling channel. Today I am sharing a story I wrote inspired from my favorite TV series, Spartacus. It's called My Star-Crossed Lover, and it's about Callen, who is a gladiator, who falls in love with a princess and their duel in life to gain access to love one another. I hope that you enjoy this fictional historical romance. Thank you for your support. Enjoy.
I'm hoping what I said could make you change your mind, though it doesn't really matter when my hands are tied. I'm trying to walk across the bridges that I've burned. My only way to you is gone, the tide has turned. So give me a light, show me what I need. I know I'm blind, but I hear symphonies of your heartbeat.
Callen, fight to your death. The words that burned inside my mind as I stood on the arena of sand and blood, decorated with the sweat and tears of my brother's past. The sword is no longer heavy in my hands, as I have learned to steady its weight. But as the sun beats down on me with its pity, I looked up to the Colosseum, and I am met with eyes full of yearning. Yearning to see me fight for entertainment, for their enjoyment, for their pastime. And here I am, to slain one of my brothers who is caged, starved, and beaten with me inside this hellhole. All because I was born a slave in a world where nobility ruled with a level of their thumb as to if I would live or die. Today's fight was against Callen, another of my good, strong brothers, who I had the pleasure of training to become a killer inside the arena. But we were told by the king to simply joust for fun, and even if blood was to be drawn, to minimize damage to the skin. A new batch of slaves would be arriving tomorrow, and those would be who we would kill. Today, it was merely for show and for applause. Applause. The king once said if I were to die, I would die by the sound of someone applauding me and shouting my name. Forgive me, but I would rather die in the arms of the woman I love. That was a much better release of this wicked world than to die spitting blood against the sand that held me captive. But I had no control over who was going to tell me what to do, and the only thing I could do was bow my head, drop to one knee, and obey. Callen, Cavish's deep voice woke me up from my daydream. What lures you to look upon these walls with confusion? If you hope to best me, you should better get your head on straight, or else I remove it from your shoulders. Laughing, I replied, and how should you reply to the king when he finds out you had murdered on your mind when you stepped out into the arena? Oh, I shall simply say you were the lesser of a man, and I will get away with it. Not if I return as a ghost to rob you of life. The two of us laughed and playfully slapped each other's shoulders. Callen and I were both transported into the king's ludus when we were barely the age of 16. We were trained to fight, to kill, and to win. We were the best of the gladiators, and we had never taken a beating from anyone. The crowd is ready for blood. Be sure to cut Holy back just a bit, I said as I wrapped a leather strap around my wrists. I am to win woman and wine later, and if I am deeply injured, my fill will be distracted. You mean I am winning woman and wine, Callen laughed. You will be cooped up with a medic to tend your wounds for me. We shall see, brother. The fanfare was heard, and the metal gates were lifted up, as Callen and I walked out to meet the roaring crowd. From above us, the highest tower, sat King William and Queen Lanelle, along with a few other high male heirs. They were all wearing their golden robes, hair curled and perfected, slaves standing beside them, fanning them. Everything was perfectly presented, and they were here to see Callen and I tear at each other. Suddenly, a young woman entered the tower, dressed all in black with dark hair down to her waist. She was followed by a young woman with a pitcher, and she came to greet the king. And then she came to stand by the railing, and her eyes gazed upon me. Who is that? I asked. Callen turned, and the woman turned to look at him. Oh, I dare say. It's the princess. Princess? Since when did the king have a daughter? Since before you and I arrived, you brute. She had been sent to England for schooling, and I heard talk among the men that she had returned. I suppose that is Princess Xiomara. My breath caught in my chest, for I had never seen such a woman as beautiful as her in my life. She was so gentle-looking, and she looked as if she had never seen blood in her life before. What was her father doing letting her witness this? Her father called her name. Indeed, it was Xiomara, and she looked at me one last time before she walked to sit beside her father. Cavish laughed at me as he twirled his sword in his hand and banged the shield he held. "Give it up, Callen. No princess would ever be found in your arms. Choose from the many wenches sent to your win," Cavish said with a grin. "And yet history shall be rewritten by me." "Begin!" King William's voice shouted from the tower. "Be gentle, Cavish. I would like to be able to spill seed to a woman tonight." Cavish's cry war deafened my ears as he charged forward, his sword cutting through air and hissing along the way. Our weapons clanged loudly, singing like an off-key chorus into the air as our footwork sent the sand dust flying with the wind. I cursed as Cavish struck me low, and my shin felt his shield. Bringing up the handle of my sword, I jammed it toward his chin, and he was thrown off, body flipping like a loose tumbleweed in the wind as I shook my leg. "You savage barbarian! You dare to strike me low like a disease?" I asked. He got up as blood trickled down his chin, and he laughed. "You have lost your head, Callen. I intend to take it from you." He cried out and came at me full force, and I jumped over, turning to slam my shield into his back. He fell forward, and I sliced his upper bicep, drawing blood. The crowd roared as he brought up his shield and slammed my jaw. I stumbled backward, feeling as if my teeth were all broken. As I collected myself, I saw the sword coming at me, and I met his with a loud cry. We came each other like hungry wolves, but I broke it by kneeing his lower belly, and as he took the time to feel pain, I knocked sword and shield out of his hand and pushed him with my shoulder until he fell flat on his back. "Enough!" The king's voice came from above. The crowd went wild as I stood above Cavish with my sword. King William came to stand by the railing, and he clapped. "The triumphant Callen! No one has ever vanquished his light yet." I extended my hand to help Cavish up as he spit out blood and laughed. "Woman and wine, I shall share with you, brother. You fought well, and deserve to be by my side to celebrate." As we picked up sword and shield and began walking back to the caged underground, I looked up and saw Xiomara's dark eyes staring at me, and then a smile spread across her pretty face. Xiomara. Such beasts in the arena. I had never witnessed anything so glorifying as this. I had been trapped inside walls of education and gentlewoman etiquette, and upon my return, my father allowed me to sit and watch the match between his two gladiators. No wonder so many paid such huge coins for this show. It was thrilling, and the dedication of each gladiator to fight until death or loss. It was amazing to see. "Tiana, did you enjoy that?" I asked as we walked to the market crowd after the show. Tiana, my servant, was a young girl the same age as I was, only she sported a head of light hair, whereas mine was dark. She was a soft-spoken young girl who I had left behind when I was sent off to school, and I returned to find her beautiful and grown. "Milady, that is nothing to be boasting about in broad daylight for someone of your status. I do not know why the king allowed someone whose eyes are so tender as yours to watch such a display of blood." Laughing, I replied, "Nonsense! I quite enjoyed it. I had thought for a moment that the one named Cavish would win, but oddly enough he lost. I wonder what the payment for the winner is." "Wine and woman," Tiana replied quickly. I paused and stared at her with amazement. "And my father gives these to the brutes." "They are not brutes, my lady. They are gladiators. And yes, your father provides this for his winning champion. Callen has been the longest reigning champion since the beginning of time. No one has ever bested him, and he has never known knees on sand." Giggling, I clapped my hands together. Callen. He's a man of striking looks. He looks magnificent and large. My lady, mind your tongue. Laughing, I replied, do not tell me to mind my tongue, Tiana. I have been around women who pretend to be on their best behavior in public, while behind closed doors their thighs know the husbands of their best friend. Tiana's face turned sour. I thought you were in England to be educated in how to be a fine lady. Laughing, I replied, fine lady is nowhere to be found, dear Tiana. Even the finest of a woman would desire the wicked ways of pleasure brought by a man. And I am exhausted repeating words as my lord and my lady to men and women who are nowhere near the earning of that title. At least when I am lost in throes of passions, I am doing it faithfully to my heart and not hiding behind a mask. It was true. The past 11 years that I had been away from home had to become a lady, but I found the world I was brought to was far worse than the arena that the gladiators fought in. There were lies and deceit beyond anything, and I had to fight my way to just survive the worst from women who felt they earned better than me. I had to fight off men who thought I was there for their viewing, that they could touch me as they pleased. I learned to carry a dagger with me everywhere I went, and if anyone dared to look at me cross-eyed, I was ready to gut them. Home is not what I thought it would be, I said softly. The market here, where commoners live, are more to my liking than the strict walls of my own home. I can barely breathe there. The boarding school where I had been locked away in the past 11 years was suffocating, and I had learned nothing inside the walls. Whatever education I learned was outside when I was by myself and trying to fend for my life. I didn't like the nobility life, and I'd hated that I had no choice in every part of my life. My father's letter of choosing my husband for me arrived a week before I was finished with school, and I dreaded returning home. The man my father had betrothed me to was Prince Hamish Loring of Evergreen Estates, and I had already heard of his reputation. He was a womanizer, an alcoholic, and a gambler, a cocktail of a man that left me bitter already before the vows were exchanged. But Hamish came with a rich future, and that was all my father saw. Hamish would provide well for me and give my father all the gold he wanted in the world. Not only that, he would forever be sitting at the throne, and Hamish would make sure no one would take it away from him. It was a wish he had always wanted, to be king forever. I saw Hamish once a while back, when he had been young and not yet fully grown as a man. I wondered what he looked like now, and I wondered if my heart would pound and beat as it did when I noticed the gladiators fighting across the sand today. The moment of life and death left me trembling in my shoes, and I felt as if the world had darkened around me when one finally fell. Was this how they were determined life? Was this how they saw death? And the final dance they did was to aim at another man's throat, just to make sure they saved theirs? All the while the crowd went wild, and my father's pockets grew heavy with coins. What a horrendous man to call my blood and relative. My mother's silence told a lot about the kind of woman she was, but then again, she had always been the silent type, only to watch and nod when it came to my father's decisions. Much like the decision of my own husband, I was positive that she simply just agreed, without even uttering a single word to stand up for me. While away from home, my marriage had been arranged, and I returned not to be family, but to be stranger among my birthplace. Tiana, I said as I rounded the corner of the market, I envy you. Your freedom is so intoxicating that it drugs me in every way. I want what you have. Laughing, she replied, My lady, perhaps your sights are poor, but what I have you will never be able to thrive on. You are used to being served. Can you serve another? Yes, I said sternly, so long as my marriage is not arranged and decided for me. I returned home to find that I must marry Hamish of Evergreen Estates, a man whose breath reeks with wine at all odd hours of the day, and his touch is vile, destroying, robbing virtues and not giving love. My father's rich idea is to forever tie him to me, so that his throne will always be his. I am almost certain your marriage is yours to decide. Tiana touched my arm gently. Your marriage is locked to a good man. Hamish will give you plenty to look forward to. Laughing, I replied, Even you cannot hide the lies that cloaks the tongue when you speak of Hamish. A wicked pig, no less, and probably better suited to live in the barn. Callen. I saw her watching me from where she sat in the tower, but I did not expect to see her tonight at the winning dinner presented from the king and queen. She was beyond anything magical at the dinner, and I felt for the first time my heart pounding with fear that I would not be accepted as a man in the eyes of a woman. Her father, the king, was speaking in glorified terms of what I had brought to the ludus, but I heard barely anything. My focus was on her, yet her eyes were focused on her plate with greens that she did not touch. "Callen!" the king called out my name. "Present self." I walked up to him and bent down on my knee. "My king?" "Wine and woman are your winning gifts. Choose your wine and your woman." In walked a line of servants dressed provocatively, hair down to the waist, their breasts bare and their hips decorated with belts of jewels. Cavish nudged me and sniggered a jealous murmur, but I saw Xiomara's eyes roll. "Choose your woman," the king said with a smile. I looked up at the king and stood towering over almost everyone I looked at. "My king, may I ask for a boon?" Willem's eyebrows shot up in questioning. "Do you not like what I offer you?" "It is not that, my lord." "Boon? What is your boon?" "My brothers have been without wine and woman for a long time. I have won many moons in a row, and I wish to share my winnings with my brothers. May I have enough for everyone?" King Willem laughed. "What the champion requests, the champion receives. Wine and woman for all my gladiators." I heard my brothers behind me roared with laughter and glee, and I saw Xiomara stare at me with inquisitive eyes. The gladiators came forward and began selecting the woman and wine to carry off to their personal cell. The king and queen began to lose conversation with their friends, and I turned around to go back to my cell. Upon entering the hallway to where I lived alone in the hardened walls and a bed, I heard my name being called by a sweet voice. I turned around, and Xiomara came into light, her pretty face appearing before me like the sun that rose in the morning. "My lady, these walls are not for your lingering. If any man found you, it would not be in your favor," I said. Smiling, she replied, "But you would not allow that to happen, would you?" "I would not." "Then I need not worry at all, gladiator. You have won the fight, but yet you seek to deliver the gifts to all those who lost. Why is that so?" I watched as her eyes glittered in the ray of the moonlight, and I curled my hands into fists. She, who never knew pain, would never understand. Any man who is set to die when the morning hour comes should die having his pleasures filled and his tongue soaked with wine. She laughed. "And here I thought you were a barbarian, and yet here you are sprouting poetry like Shakespeare." "What do you demand of me, my lady? The hour is late, and you are keeping me from wine and woman, if you have forgotten." She grinned. "Your place holds no woman and wine. You were merely doing so not to be punished by my father for rejecting his gifts. You are more noble than those who fight beside you and earn titles as your brothers. One look, and I can see how majestic you are and how you hold yourself. I wanted to meet you, gladiator, and find words exchanged with you, even in secret, at least once. Enjoy your silent and solo night, champion." She was right. I came back to my cell, alone, and laid on my cot, thinking back to her words. How did she guess? Many times the woman who came to spend the night with me lay next to me like a sister, and she would leave her virtue intact, and I would go about my day as if I had done something to her. No one knew because I hadn't desired anyone enough to keep her by my side. Cavish thought me dense of this subject, and used it against me when we jousted, but I could only smile and face the sun with what I held dear to my heart. My own virtue, and it wasn't as if I hadn't had a woman, I did, but I did not keep many to entertain myself as my brothers did. The sound of the cell door opening had me sitting up, and I watched as Ileana entered holding a pitcher of wine. Her dark hair was tied in a ponytail, and her eyes were alert and bright as she closed the door. "Callen, the night is young, and you stay here, trapped inside the walls, when you are the champion everyone roars for." Ileana was a young servant who attended to the gladiator's wounds when brought into the medic. She shared a simple smile and carried warmth to her heart. She and I had exchanged bodily fluids on certain nights when the wind was too cold, but beyond the embrace, there was nothing that ignited the heart to feel emotion. Ileana, I did not ask for wine. I know you did not, but I came bearing it regardless. Now you must drink with me. I stood up and stopped her from pouring me a cup. My day has been long, and my body calls for sleep. I wish not to drown in wine tonight. Return, and I shall see you again when the sun splits the sky tomorrow. Her smile faded, and she set the pitcher down. May I stay with you tonight? She smiled again and took my hands. Everyone has seen me come your way. Would you destroy my reputation by sending me back? Of course not. But I fear my arms are not going to be of comfort. My lips probably less of conversation. Nodding, she replied, Then I shall sit with you and enjoy the silence. I nodded and gestured for her to sit on the bed with me. As we took the place on the bed, me toward the top and her on the lower level, I found her presence to be of a small comfort, but what I truly wanted was someone whose eyes danced with a spark that shined like none other. Callen, do you wish for freedom outside of this ludus? Ileana asked quietly. Who does not? Me? I lifted my hands to place behind my head and I glared up at the ceiling. Why not? It would mean I would have to be away from you. If I can have your presence here inside this ludus, then I shall stay. I chuckled. Ileana, you speak foolish words. If you wish to have me by your side, you will also wish the both of us to be freed. She touched my leg. Your heart accepts me, to be with me no matter. I sat up and brought my legs up toward my chest. Ileana, remove such thought from your mind. No matter where you and I roam, our bond is that of a kind friendship whose hearts suffer the same wrath. Her eyes glittered with tears. You speak of me as if you have not known my body like a lover does. I do not call myself your lover, and I do not speak of you in loving terms. We both have exchanged pleasures, so the morning sun will arrive sooner. It does not mean we are in love. If you thought so, you have been foolish to believe so, and I have nothing more to say to you. Xiomara. You saw who leaving Callen's cell? I asked as Tiana moved about my chamber, dropping rose petals into the tub for my morning bath. I was wearing a thin white robe over myself as I ran my fingers through my hair. The night had been full of tossing and turning, thinking and dreaming of a pair of dark eyes. I saw Ileana leaving his cell this morning. What does that mean? Tiana laughed. It means, my lady, she spent the night in his arms. Who is she? She is another slave girl who serves the gladiators. She is quite beautiful, very easy to converse with, and has been keeping Callen company. In fact, only she is allowed into his cell. I smirked. And here I thought he was spending the night alone by himself. How could I be so wrong? Fetch me this Ileana. Yes, my lady. Ileana turned out to be more beautiful and charming than I expected. She had the look that would entice a man to his knees, and I could see why Callen was drawn to her. She arrived wearing the slave attire, and I knew right away that if given proper clothing, she would be the best looking among the crowd. Ileana, is it? I asked. Yes, my lady. Ileana, what attributes do you possess to charm such a man like Callen? I asked. Her eyes widened and she lowered her gaze. None, my lady. Did you not spend the night in his cell? When a man and a woman are alone together, the sheets burn, and sleep is nowhere to be found. None of that took place, my lady. Oh? Why not? She looked up at me and said in a stern voice, He does not desire me the way you think, my lady. The heart of Callen exists only to beat for the applause inside the arena, and not for any being outside of it. I watched as her eyes shimmered with an emotion I could not read. Jealousy swarmed through my veins as I thought of how she must have been entwined in his arms, but then I realized the emotion I could not detect so easily was one of someone her status hid quite well. It was shame. Your body was cold in his comfort, I said. Why then do you seek him out? Wishful thinking, my lady, and none other than that. To say that I have never shared his body would be a lie from my lips. I have shared his body, known his seed across my thigh, but in exchange of bodily pleasures, and when the moment passes, It is friendship gazes that is looked upon my eyes. The way she described it made my heart hammer with envy. Why, I had no clue, and it left me lingering to find out more. I undressed and walked into the tub where Tiana covered me with rose petals. "I want you to serve me," I said as I watched her gaze turn to shock. "Do you question me?" "No. Tiana, change her clothing and make her suitable and presentable for me." "Yes, my lady." As Tiana led her away, I felt the hole in my heart widen. Callen's eyes had danced all night long in my dreams, and I could hear his voice whispering all around me. I wanted him like no man I had ever wanted before. The affection that rose in my heart for him was like chasing after a devil. I knew it would burn, but still I wanted it. Would my father allow me to buy his freedom? Ileana appeared dressed well in a light blue gown that reached the bottom of her ankles, and her hair had been braided down her back. Her appearance made me realize just how truly beautiful she was. She trailed behind me with Tiana, and as we entered the dining hall, my father looked up at me with questioning eyes. "What does a servant from the gladiator hall do here?" he asked. "I have made her mine." "Under whose authority?" "My own," I replied with a smile as Tiana pulled a chair for me to sit down. The two stood behind me as I poured a cup of wine for myself. "I want her to serve me." "She serves the gladiators," my father said as he narrowed his gaze at me. "No one argues with me on that. Guards, return her." "No," I cried as I stood up. "I want her to serve me." "Darling, you already have Tiana," my mother said. "I want her to." "She serves the gladiators. She can serve us both." "I have been away from the ludus for too long, and I wish to know more about the games you host. Perhaps I can help bring more coins into your pocket." This got my father's attention as he gestured for me to sit down. "Speak." "The game is all about the gladiators fighting, and none of them as a man. Why do we not host a time and a place for the ladies of the kingdom to pick and entertain a gladiator for the evening, at a price we can suggest, and they can know a champion beyond the arena?" My father's eyes widened, and then he leaned back in his chair, amused. "You have grown in mind. Who would want a gladiator between the sheets? The honorable woman will never dare enter this ludus for fear of mark across their reputation. Then we offer a mask at the entrance, where their identity is hidden, and no one should know who goes in and who comes out." "Foolish!" my mother cried. "A scheme to get rich quick with coins that will have death begging at our doors. Husband, you better not dare agree to this wild suggestion of Xiomara's. It would lead to dismay and blood disputes among the public. No husband will ever allow their wives to enter, and no father will gift their daughters right to roam around here. It is a despicable idea, and one better thrown out." "Mother, the women attend the games and applaud when blood is spilt on the ground. What difference does it make? The game is a time of public admiration where everyone is unmasked. What you speak of is a place and time of silence and secrecy where pleasures are not denied. It would lead to death at our door. I forbid it." "Xiomara, I will have to agree with your mother." "Then let me host one of my own," I said. My mother's hand slammed against the table. "You are a daughter of a king. How dare you slander your father's name with such evil thoughts? Strike them from your mind and focus on being a gentlewoman." I laughed as I plucked a grape to eat. A gentlewoman. "You and father sent me off to boarding school all these years while you host such vile games at home. How dare you ask me to be gentle when you cannot even do the same?" "Do not speak to your mother in such words, Xiomara. The idea is banished and will never be brought up again. Ileana is to return to the gladiators, and you are to be confined to your room to reflect on your behavior." My idea was to make my father come to the realization that I was not the same daughter anymore. He held such games, made these men fight like animals to gain him a high place in the public, and my mother stood silent, and he had hoped I would too. But I was not my mother, and I would fight for the freedom of these men. When I returned Ileana to her room, she reached for her dress, ready to return it to me, but I held her hands together. "Keep it. It is yours." My lady, if I'm caught wearing this, I would be put to death. It would be my execution. I dare anyone to try. I would not let it happen. Wear it, and if someone stops you, mention my name, I said. She gave me a smile. Gratitude to your soul, my lady. As she entered her room, I turned around and walked out to the hallway, where I saw Callen and Cavish walking with guards coming toward me, no doubt to meet with my father to discuss game. The morning must be fooling my eyes, Callen. Does the princess stand before us gladiators in a place she should not be wandering? Cavish asked. And do you dare ask her yourself? I inquired. Cavish's face paled, and he laughed as I stopped the guards. I need to exchange words with Callen. I shall have him delivered to my father shortly. Cavish gave an uncertain smile as he walked with the guards toward where my father waited for him. What do you wish from me? Callen asked. Nothing. I merely wanted confirmation of something. And that is? I took a deep breath and smiled. What hold does Ileana have over your heart? Frowning, he asked, Ileana, what does this mean to you? She spent the night in your room, warm and comforted, I am sure. Smiling, he came closer to me and whispered, Why, princess, does it weaken your thoughts to know I had my legs wrapped around another? That she had the feel of me inside her all night long? I laughed, and then I cocked my head to the side. Foolish man you are, Callen. I merely wanted the truth, and yet you utter such lies from your lips. Ileana already told me you left her cold and alone while you slept with your thoughts. Your seed and legs were nowhere near her. His face paled as he stepped back. Foolish and unwise words depart from my lips. It would seem so, Callen. You knew, yet you asked. What purpose do you seek? I shrugged, and then I crossed my arms. Perhaps I seek to see you freed. When I look at you, I am filled with an ache that does not sit well with me. My father may be king, but he lacks thoughts of kindness toward those whose status are below his. And you, his daughter, what thoughts linger in your mind? He asked as he came closer to me. Do you think you are so different because you feel an ache that should not belong there? You are royal blood, born of nobility, and have never known the cry of the weak or the pain of the fallen. What makes you and I the same? Smiling, I replied, We are the same. We are forced to obey the orders of my father. Daughter as me, forced to marry and obliged, and you, gladiator, forced to fight and bend as he points. The two of us are more alike than we know. He smiled as he bent down low to my ear. Princess, you are deadly wrong. You and I are as different as night and day. What you feel in freedom, I cry in vain. What you speak publicly proud, I weep in silence. My wounds are cut much deeper than yours, and do not dare to assume you know the likes of me just because your father shuts your opinions down. I reached out to hold his hand and realized his body was extremely warm. Callen, if you believe we are different, then you do not know me at all. Perhaps your head has been pounded by fists of your enemy to fully understand that I cry out in silence just as much as you. I bend and I bow when my father speaks, just as you take one knee when he stands. Remember that. Thank you for tuning in. Chapter 2 will be out shortly.
I'm hoping what I said could make you change your mind, though it doesn't really matter when my hands are tied. I'm trying to walk across the bridges that I've burned. My only way to you is gone, the tide has turned. So give me a light, show me what I need. I know I'm blind, but I hear symphonies of your heartbeat. Tongue hold back wrong, now that's an understatement. To walk alone, I guess it's my repayment. Please give me a light.